Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the world's dumbest opera. Now, that is saying a lot, because opera is not generally known for its intellectual sophistication and for the dynamic and fabulously developed trajectory of its plot lines, never mind the literary quality of its librettos. Ooh, baby. So it takes a lot to get the award for world's dumbest opera, but the consensus for many, many years has been Meyerbeer's Dinorah, or The Pardon of Ploermel, whatever that is. Actually, it's a village. We're going to get to that. Now, Meyerbeer has come in for an enormous amount of guff historically. He was, in fact, a very gifted composer who wrote some splendid operas. He was known primarily as the inventor of French grand opera, and nothing is held in lower esteem these days than French grand opera, particularly by people like the British, who are upset about the fact that the only thing held in lower esteem than French grand opera is Victorian English oratorios. But there's a difference. The difference is that Victorian English oratorios deserve the contempt in which they're held, whereas French grand opera, and Meyerbeer's in particular, are absolutely amazing, remarkable pieces with lots of splendid music, as proven by the fact that Wagner did exactly what they do, but claimed that they were horrible and he was wonderful. And because Wagner was basically heavily indebted to the French operatic tradition, which Wagnerians have done their best to remain as ignorant as possible of, he is given credit for doing a lot of the things that Meyerbeer, who was extremely kind to Wagner and encouraging, did. And Wagner repaid Meyerbeer's kindness with scathing contempt and insane personal jealousy and hatred of the fact that Meyerbeer was Jewish. And that really accounts for a lot of the historical opprobrium heaped on Meyerbeer. However, when it comes to Dinorah, despite the lovely music, and the music is lovely, the plot is insane. It is absolutely idiotic. It has been known as a dead opera about a live goat, which is exactly what it is. It is a dead opera about a live goat, and I'm going to prove it by reading perfectly straight the plot of Dinorah. It really deserved to have been an Anna Russell routine. It's a pity she never got to it. But I think the problem is that it's so silly all by itself that there was nothing she could have added in the humor department. I think I'll be able to demonstrate that. Anyway, this recording of Dinorah is the complete opera on the Opera Rara label. It features a fabulous Deborah Cook as Dinorah. And let's see, Christian Duplessis, Alexander Oliver, Della Jones, Martin Hill Smith, and the Philharmonia Orchestra under the redoubtable James Judd, who's wonderful and unusual repertoire. Now, there is another recording on CPO, which the ClassicsToday.com opera critic Bob Levine has reviewed. You should check out that review there. He finds, and I agree with him, that this particular set has the best Dinorah, but the supporting cast is not as good as the more recent CPO recording, which stars also a very good Patricia Cioffi and a better supporting cast on the whole. But it's 6 1/2 dozen in the other. And I'm not here to talk about recordings. I'm here to talk about the dumbest opera ever. And here is the plot. Not the least of the attractions, by the way, of Opera Rara is that you get a really nice booklet full of scholarly notes and a terrific plot synopsis, which is actually in readable type. This was, like all of Meyerbeer's operas, very popular when it was first performed, and then it vanished into total oblivion. So, let us begin at the beginning. Are you ready? Here we go. The action of Dinorah. Oh, by the way, let's just give credit where credit is due for this really superb synopsis. It was written by, hang on a minute. Let's see. This is Michael Scott. Good job, Mr. Scott. It really is, you'll see. Okay, the action of Dinorah takes place in and around the Breton village of Ploermel. Hoel, a goat herd, and Dinorah, his betrothed, set out for the chapel where they are to be married on the day of the annual pilgrimage in honor of the Virgin, the pardon of Ploermel. That's the pilgrimage. But before the wedding can take place, a violent storm overtakes them, and Dinorah's home is destroyed by lightning. Hoel, anxious to rebuild it, learns of the treasure of the Corrigans, a Breton fairy folk, and determines to go in search of it. The wizard Tonic, and the other wizard, Dominant, the wizard Tonic advises that he must first of all spend a year in solitude. Accordingly, he departs, but without telling Dinorah, who, believing herself deserted, goes mad and wanders through the woods seeking him, accompanied by her pet goat, Bella. Bella is the star of the opera, although it is a non-singing role. It is a bleating role, or something like that. So there's a wonderful overture, and etc., etc. So when the curtain rises, a year has passed. After a short chorus in which the villagers apostrophize the rustic beauties of the country, we hear the rushing string arpeggi, and Dinorah enters looking for her goat. The goat is always missing. At length, she finds it asleep in a beautiful berceuse. Let's see. It's dors petite, dors tranquille, sleep my little, sleep peacefully. A characteristically Meyerbeerian piece, with its short melodic figures, sequence of modulations, and delicate orchestration, the composer establishes Dinorah's fey nature, crying and laughing by turns as she promises to watch over her pet and protect it from the wolf. This is easily the most beautiful lullaby ever written to be sung to a goat. Now, as you know, opera is full of things like that. And there's no question that, grand arias sung to animals. I mean, Wagner, the whole Brunhilde's immolation scene, remember, is the world's biggest aria ever sung to a horse. So Wagner, with his inherent grandiosity, had to do Meyerbeer one better. Meyerbeer only had a goat. Wagner had a horse. Therefore, Wagner's better? I'm not so sure. All right. A short prelude in the style of a hurdy-gurdy in an appropriate introduction makes the appropriate introduction for Corentin, a bagpiper. He is in a highly nervous state, believing stories that goblins and dwarfs haunt the area, and quickly goes into the cottage that he has just inherited from his uncle Alain. Taking up his pipes in a couplet, a strophic air, a feature of the opera comique style familiar from works of Waldier and Aubert, he tries to cheer himself with the thought that it is not given to everyone to be courageous. He's a coward. It is a picturesque piece, the clarinet doing duty for the bagpipes, and requiring of the singer considerable dexterity in the articulation of the text. It says, never has so much dexterity been employed to so little purpose, I think. Dinorah is attracted by Corentin's playing and, imitating the inflections of the pipes, vocalizes the refrain outside his window. When he stops playing, she runs into the cottage and insists that he continue. Terrified and convinced that she is a wicked fairy, he plays and dances until both, exhausted, fall asleep. This is not a duet in the classical sense. I'll bet. For although the two voices harmonize, the vocal line of each remains entirely characteristic. All right, that's fine. Hoel returns after his year's absence, confident that he has discovered the secret of the Corrigan's treasure, having learned that the first to touch it will surely die. Oops, forgot that detail. He has come to take Alain with him as victim. Finding Corentin instead, he decides that he will do just as well. Nice guy, this Hoel. And sends him out to buy some wine to put him into a receptive mood. He has to buy his own wine so that he can have Hoel kill him. Left alone, there is in the air, oh, puissante magie, Hoel exults at the prospect of securing the treasure of riches unknown, gold, rubies, and pearls. It's a dramatic scene. Yes, okay, we know this. Highly effective is the D major passage, Ce trésor, oh ma fiancée, in which Hoel, changing from his angry mood, in a tender legato resolves to throw the entire treasure at the feet of his beloved, once he's disposed of the corpse, of course. Corentin comes back with the wine. In a recitative, Hoel recounts the events of the previous year and then tells of the treasure. He proposes to share it with Corentin, who is fascinated but apprehensive, and rightly so. Hoel assures him that there is nothing to be afraid of and that a white goat will lead them safely to the place where it is hidden. In a duet, he makes Corentin repeat after him the conjuration, which will render all the dark spirits and goblins harmless. Okay, let's see. Hoel pronouncing the incantation of blah, blah, blah. Okay, he talks about how they sing. A burst of laughter interrupts them, and Dinorah appears at the cottage window and throws in a bouquet. Corentin is unnerved, but Hoel, who quite fails to recognize his fiancée, not surprisingly for this opera, assures him that it is only a spirit and to disregard her. With the wine to fortify his spirits, Corentin resolves to join Hoel, and the two shake hands. The somber atmosphere is dispelled in a lively and spirited duo bouffe. Corentin drinking to give himself courage, and Hoel making light of his fears. At length, the goat's bell is heard in the distance. The magic goat, Bella, and Hoel declares it is the signal. The hour has come for them to set out for the Val Maudit, the haunted valley. Oh boy. The act ends, finally, with one of the most felicitous passages in the entire score. A trio full of delightful effects and showing Meyerbeer's skill in polyphonic writing. The three are out searching for the goat as night falls, and in the distance can be heard the rumbling of thunder. There you go. So they go and they run away, and the curtain falls, and we hear the goat's bell on a high F sharp. And as the same moment, a ray of moonlight reveals the animal high on the top of a hill. So they all go off chasing the goat. Dinorah, because it's her goat. Hoel and Corentin, because they think it's the magic goat. So, the second act opens with a short, delicately scored entr'acte. When the curtain goes up, the peasants sing. Oh, the peasants. You know, I could do an entire talk on peasants in opera. The happy peasants, the chorus of happy peasants. Oh, the peasants. Yeah, the peasants sing an unaccompanied chorus of the kind the composer delighted in, full of characteristic devices. Let's see. The men in a brindisi extol the virtues of wine, of course, and then humming provide the harmony to their womenfolk as they rejoice at the prospect of the festival on the morrow. And Meyerbeer is exceptionally fond of onomatopoeia. Aha! And who else do we know was fond of onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia, poeia. Yeah, that thing. Wagner, right? Remember the scene with Albrecht that Anna Russell did? Garstig, Gatwick, Latchbeck, Cleverby, Mike, Salzby, Händen und Füßen, mit Fassenden, Schlachtiger, Schnupfen, Fäuste, Flasche, Schlagwiese. There you go. Where do you think you got it? Anyway, a goatherd enters telling the sad story of Dinorah's lost love. This is a different goatherd, by the way. Consequent derangement and her wanderings through the countryside and the mountains, still clad in her wedding gown, while the chorus joins in the lamentation. It is a simple and graceful air, and the words have a suitably ingenuous rhyme scheme. Bergère timide, pauvre âme candide, prends garde et fuis la mort perfide. I mean, come on. Sublime. Absolutely sublime. The scene shifts to the Val Maudit, the accursed valley. We hear again the running figure in the strings, and Dinorah enters. She sings a short, melancholy romance in a naive style. Suddenly, The somber darkness of the forest is illuminated by the moon. Catching sight of her shadow, Dinorah conceives of it as a companion, and in the famous mazurka Ombre Légère, sings and dances with it, the shadow dance, with a familiar feature of the romantic ballet. Now, this is the most famous piece in the opera, the Shadows song from Dinorah, and it's often done separately, and lots of sopranos do it and still do it. It's a coloratura showpiece. It really is. It's quite marvelous. Anyway, let's see. A cloud passes over the moon, and darkness returns. Once again, Dinorah sinks into her sad reverie. But the moon quickly reappears. It's there. It's gone. It's there. It's gone. It's back. And taking up the air, she continues as gaily and blithely as before, bringing the piece to a conclusion in a brilliant cadenza. Hole and Corentin enter, searching for the goat. Corentin, by now sober again, is cold, dispirited, and exhausted. He insists on taking a rest. Hoel, anxious to get to the treasure as quickly as possible and kill Corentin, goes off on his own. I mean, what is he going to do when he gets there? I mean, they don't tell us. And then there's a little aria, a chanson, in which Corentin does his best to laugh off his depression. In the darkness, he comes upon Dinorah and makes fun of her ramblings, but when she sings the legend of the curse of the treasure, he reveals Hoel's treachery. Corentin's worst fears are confirmed. Hoel returns, announcing that it is time for one of them to go down into the ravine. Corentin, however, declines to be the one and challenges Hoel. Excuse me, I got an itch there. This is one of those plots that makes you itchy. And challenges Hoel with the story of the curse. Hoel tries to dismiss it, but as he himself will not go first, and notwithstanding all his threats and blandishments, Corentin refuses to budge. Both reluctantly bid the treasure adieu. So that's it. They think they're going to go. Anyway, Dinorah reappears. I mean, where has she been? What is she doing? She comes, she goes, she comes, she goes. Anyway, and there begins the scene which ends the act. Hoel is still convinced she is a spirit sent to keep him from the treasure. I mean, Corentin rather absurdly thinks to persuade her to be the first to touch it and offer her pearls and diamonds, as many as she wishes. She does not reply, but instead sings of the birds and the sweet sound of their warblings. Oh, God, a bird aria. The two male voices join in with the bird aria, Corentin vainly trying to dazzle her with the prospect of the treasure. Hoel, repeating the conjuration, he repeats the conjuration. Thunder, which has been menacing in the background, breaks out violently overhead. In a vigorous allegro, Dinorah greets the storm. There develops a trio as Corentin grows increasingly apprehensive, and Hoel is troubled by something familiar about the sound of Dinorah's voice. At the height of the storm, with the sky as bright as day, the goat is seen running across a tree bridging a ravine. Oh my God, there's the goat. Dinorah rushes after it, but halfway across, a bolt of lightning breaks the tree in two, and she plunges into the chasm. Holy crap! Hoel, at last recognizing Dinorah as his own beloved in the distance after the lightning, as she goes shrieking down into the chasm, goes to her rescue. It is a powerful piece, reminiscent of the great trio from Robert le Diable. Oh, I'll bet. Let's see. Yeah, it goes. Yeah. Okay, fine. So he goes to save her. And that's the end of Act 2. Now, this is a 3-act opera. It only lasts about 2 hours and 20 minutes. There's just an incredible amount of incident crammed into it, ain't there? So, the first part of Act 3 is taken up with a pastoral interlude, because why should they get on with the plot? I mean, given what the plot is, why would you ever want to get on with the plot? Only indirectly related to the plot. Yes, I just said that. A short entr'acte introduces a huntsman who sings a joyous air. Oh my goodness. Then there's a reaper song, and then there's like other stuff. Then some goat herds enter playing their pipes, and they sing a charming duet, and the interlude comes to an end. Thank God. I mean, that's assuming anybody's left in the theater. I mean, they're not demanding their money back, with all 4, voices. Well, okay. Each of the characters talks of these stories in the night, and the stories, the storm. Yeah, what am I talking about? The storm in the night. And they render thanks to God as the Pater Noster. That's the scene of the first scene. And the music is very attractive, although irrelevant dramatically. I mean, as if something in this opera is relevant dramatically. So it's the vocal equivalent of the visual spectacle offered by the ballet in a grand opera. Because this is an opera comique, actually. It has dialogue. Not a lot, but it has dialogue. Do you care? I don't. Okay, the action, such as it is, now resumes. Now we get swiftly to the denouement. And Corentin comes in, unable to talk of anything save the events of the night. Shortly afterwards, Hoel appears, carrying Dinorah in his arms. At first, he believes her dead. He doesn't know. He hasn't checked. But when she stirs, he sings this wonderful aria. Stricken with remorse, he begs her to speak to him. And this is one of the most eloquent passages in all of Meyerbeer's works, we are told. And its neglect by modern baritones is absolutely inexplicable. Puzzles the hell out of me. The music has genuine romantic feeling. It requires a singer of great finesse. Okay, finally. When Dinorah awakens, her reason returns. Just in time, thank God. And Hoel persuades her that the events of the last year were but a dream, and she is stupid enough to believe him. That's part of the joy of this particular opera. In her happiness and relief, she endeavors to recall the prayer to the Virgin sung on the day of the pardon. Even as she does so, it's taken up by the approaching group of villagers. It is once again the day of the festival. The year has passed, and the lovers remain and resume their interrupted journey to the chapel for their wedding. Each of the characters asks forgiveness of the Virgin as the processional music, first heard the overture, now fully developed, brings the work to a fitting conclusion. But of course, you may have noticed, we don't know what happens to the goat. Where is Bella? I mean, you cannot have a wedding without Bella. That's the problem. I mean, with all the folderol that goes on, they don't even bother to resolve the fate of the most important character, Bella, who, when we last saw her, was plunging into a ravine, we think, and Hoel didn't even bother to rescue the goat. You would think that would have taken precedence over Dinorah. I mean, he's a goat herd. Obviously, goats take priority. But that, my friends, is the plot of Meyerbeer's Dinorah. Perfectly straight, absolutely with a little bit of embellishment by me. The fact of the matter is, stupid though it may be, inexplicable as it is. I mean, you cannot summarize this other than to say it's a dead opera about a live goat. It's very hard to summarize this thing. The bottom line is this. If the singing is great, it doesn't matter. And if great singing can redeem Dinorah, it can redeem anything. And that's the beauty of opera, as Anna Russell put it. You can do anything as long as you sing it. Keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me. Take care.